let's get us started here real quick. Make sure Krita shows up. There we go. Hi, Cookie. Nice to see you today. So, today's first task, well, not first task, but today's main task is going to be, so this right here that I'm opening up, this is the old map. I don't like this one too much because, for one, the geography in the ocean is mad fucked. There's so many trenches in the ocean that just shouldn't be there geologically. Like these islands here, these should not reasonably exist. The continent shapes are a little, they're kind of cool. Like, there's some features I want to keep, like the Grand Crater Gulf. But a lot of these shapes just look really generic, and I don't think it looks too unique. So, our first task today is going to be making a rough layout of continents again, just to get something nice going. So, because of how big that one is, we're actually going to start smaller. We are going to start at a 1,000 by 500 canvas here. So it's going to be a lot smaller, but it gives us a good way to kind of start sorting things out easier. I gotta plug my drawing tablet in still. Hold on, I gotta move my keyboard. Get that keyboard out of the way. Get my drawing tablet plugged into my PC. Come on. There we go. Let me make sure my audio and stuff's all good in OBS. Yeah, everything's looking good. It's picking up my mic just fine. It's picking up on my audio alright. Awesome. Okay. So, the main idea that I had for this map was, first of all, that I want there to be a large polar continent that kind of like the one we had before, just extends down a bit like that. So let me just make a sketching layer. And let me save this document in the Caliverse folder. New map. Alright, so first thing I know is I want to have a polar continent, something kind of large, that extends down a bit like that, because I think that would give it a very unique shape to it. I want to have off the end of this, I want there to be something kind of larger, like kind of there-ish, so there is a bit of a, kind of a forced area for sailing through here. Because down here, there's obviously going to be sea ice, so you can't really get through there. So I want this to kind of create a natural forced passageway. I'm thinking another one of the continents could be, like, over here, kinda. I'm not sure how to make it shaped just yet, but this one, I know I want there to be... Actually, I got an idea. I'm going to take this here. I'm going to edit that up. And I'm going to make there be another big peninsula continent right over here. Because then that means that a lot of the map is basically one gigantic polar continent. And then I can also put in some smaller landmasses, like down here I could put something. Because I'm not sure about how I want the land ratio to look on this planet, or moon just yet, because this is a moon of a gas giant, or not gas giant, oh my god. I am off my rocker today. It's a moon of a hyperterrestrial planet, so we also need to keep that in mind with, geographic influences and stuff. So... I kinda like how this is looking. Let me get an Earth map to pull up so we can have that as a reference underneath. An equirectangular, there we go, Earth map. Paste that in there. Because I want to be able to have some reference for the rough sizes and shapes of everything that we got going on here. There we go. Get that in there. So, currently the continent that we have over the North Pole is really big, so let's go for this, and this way we can have some better reference of sizes. So I think I want the polar continent to be basically relegated to, like, these kind of latitudes, and as far south as it stretches is down to, like... no, that still doesn't look very good, so I think I might have it more, like, over here, kind of stretches down a bit. And then it goes back up like this. Yeah, something like that. That looks a lot better for a polar continent, because if I layer, transform, rotate 180 degrees... Oh. Whatever. But you can see it's, like, similar in proportion to Antarctica. So, this thing is going to be pretty good for our size purposes. I want there to be something, like, kind of Africa-sized somewhere else here. So I'm thinking, like, down in this area... Let me see. So down in, like, maybe down this area, because I really like the idea of that pinch up there. So something like... I gotta make it larger than that. But, like, something... I don't know, fucking... Something like that. I think... You know what? You know what? Before anything else, we should draw the plates. Let's draw the tectonic plates before... Do we really... do I want to do that? I don't think I want to bother with that too much right now. I don't think it matters. Well, it matters a lot. I'm literally a geologist, so I know that more than anybody. But, I think, having something kinda scrungly... No, not there. Trying to get the continent shape right is a whole other task. Ugh. Me when I sneeze. So I think something kinda... Yeah, that's a pretty big continent, so I'd say that's a pretty cool one. We can add plenty more shape detail onto it later. Then I want there to be a really isolated equatorial continent that I could put somewhere out here-ish. And then I could probably have there be some, like, large islands nearby it, obviously. I think I want, like, this general region that I'm coloring in right there. This can kind of parallel, like, the Canadian Arctic, almost. Let's see, how much land have we got compared to Earth? Actually, not that much. So let's add down... Actually, no, right over here. This could be really cool. Because then, if I add something right here, like a kind of a subcontinent size thing, I can have this be right here. This area could be where a supercontinent is separating. Like, this whole area that I'm drawing through right now, this could be a big old three-way rift. So you could have these being recently separated continents. And I think I want to take, like, Australia shape inspiration. There we go. That actually looks really good. But yeah, I think that's a pretty solid place for that to go. These coasts have got to be changed up a bit. But I do like that they have the same kind of shape, so you can see they've recently separated. I do want there to be another large landmass over here, so I'm gonna put, like, something down here-ish probably is a good place. I don't know. Because what I'm looking for, because something feels a bit wrong here, and I don't know what it is. I think this needs a companion. Let's put something small-ish over here. Subcontinent size. Not too big. Because then these two continents are really isolated from the rest. I actually have a much better idea here, is that I can just make this an isthmus, and I can make this a connected continent. Because then that gives it a really unique shape, because it's a big snaky landmass that goes over the North Pole, basically. And it also allows me to give it, other landmasses nearby without as much issue. Like, I could put something, like, right down here, maybe. I could put something kind of scraggly looking. Something like that. Let's see here. So I think I'm kind of pleased with that rough layout. So what we're gonna do now is, turn down the opacity on that. And we are going to start going over it and just defining where some important continental boundaries are. So, I know right here, I want this to be a rift. So this is going to be going that way. And this is going to be a continental plate, so it's going to look kinda like that, I'd say is pretty good. Let's change up the color here. I think I want the other continent right here. This one is actually going to be just this general area here. And it is going to be going probably up, I want to say. So, with that, we can go down to this one here. This will be one of our larger plates. Something like this. Yeah, that looks pretty good for the boundaries of this one. So this one here is going to be also going... Oh, I pressed a button on my thing. There we go. This one's going to be going kind of like that. So it is going to be compressing that general area, but not as much as it otherwise would be. So let's go this color here to make this continent right here. This one's going to be heading southwest, because this is all going to be a recently separated supercontinent. And then you right down here can be going like that, so we get some interesting action of strike-slip boundaries right there. And then let's just do a little bit of that. That plate, I don't think I want much movement on it, so I'm just going to put like a little arrow going that way. Not going to be doing too much with it. This plate right down here, I want this island to be its own plate, basically. And this thing is probably going to be going this way. And then this plate, this one up here is going to be another plate for itself. Kind of like... I think it's going to be touching that northern one, too. So it's going to be a bit like this. And it is going to be going that way. So these two will eventually collide right about here. There's going to be a coalescence of land masses at the South Pole, too, and at the North Pole. So it's going to form a few more new continents later on in the history of this planet. So that means the rest of this is going to be oceanic plates. So let me pull up a plate tectonics map, just so we could see how the Earth's plates are moving, because I want to show something here. Oh my goodness, if I could get this damn thing to pop up. So I think actually what I need to do here is I do need to include more of the ocean in these plates. because seafloor spreading is a very important thing. So, we're going to be going back through some of these and doing a little bit more. It slipped my mind, but seafloor spreading is very important. So it's going to be like this, and then, oh my goodness, no, not that. Something like that. Cut this out. And I'm actually going to change the direction that this one and the other one are both going in. This one is going to be going this way. And this one is going to be going also that way. So this plate's going to be basically like that. Which means right here we're going to have some seafloor spreading occurring. So that means there's going to be a mid-ocean ridge along there. And then we've got this plate down here that I'm also going to grant some more oceanic territory. But we also do want at least one plate that is dominantly just ocean. So let me just get that set there. And this will be kind of stretching out to about there. Which means that we will have a big ocean plate right around here, kinda, mirroring the Pacific plate. So it's going to be kind of like this. I'm gonna go out like that. I'm gonna just draw along the edges here just to demonstrate where it is. Because it runs basically like this. So that's a big ocean plate in itself. And it is going to be, because ocean plates are heavier, it's going to be subducted here. So I'm just going to draw an X there. And it is also subducted from this side. But right here, it is spreading a bit. So it's going to be changing shape. And then the South Pole is also going to have a oceanic plate. It is going to look something like this, and it is going to stretch along the entire South Pole, basically. I think minus this part, I want this to be a microplate for fun. So let's change that color back. Do that. So this plate right here is going to be getting subducted there, subducted there, subducted here, spreading here. And because this is another oceanic plate, it is just going to be kind of stopped right there. So that's going to build up into another ridge. And then let's draw ourselves a few microplates. The first microplate is going to be right there. I will just have it to add some extra depth to the one above us here. So it's going to be interacting with this one here by strike-slip boundary, so this is going to be prone to earthquakes right there. And then the other plate is going to be down here. And this other plate will be moving probably towards that one, so that way we get some hills and mountains building up like right around there. It's going to be a remnant of a continental plate that got subducted a long time ago. And then right over here we've got another microplate. And this microplate I think I want to be going same direction as that yellow plate there, which means that there's going to be strike-slip boundary along here and along here, so we're going to get lots of nice earthquakes. So, now that we've got this down, I'm going to label this layer plates. The layer below it is just going to be continent sketch. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a layer for hotspots, for some volcanic hotspots. So, we are going to figure out a few places where we're going to have volcanic hotspots happening. Hotspots come up from the mantle of the object, and when they come up, they, kind of like the Hawaiian Islands, what they do is they basically build a chain of volcanoes like this, whichever way the plate is moving. So you're gonna get island chains, basically. So I think I want there to be a hotspot probably right up here. I will get there to be a hotspot. That looks like a pretty good symbol for a hotspot. Actually, I will just draw a red circle, just for clarity's sake. So this hotspot is right there, and because this plate's moving this way, that means that there is going to be a trail of islands kind of like that. So, I've got that one there. I think I want there to be another hotspot right about here-ish. And I want this one to curve a little bit, just to show that the plates can turn and push each other around. I want there to be a hotspot that creates a big ol' super volcano around here. That would be fun. So this one's going to be kind of, this whole general area is going to be a caldera. And I think it might be fun to have another super volcano be right about here, and have this entire area also be a super volcano. In reality, let me look up how many hotspots does Earth have. How many mantle hotspots are there? There are about 40 to 50 active hotspots on Earth. So, we can just kind of plaster them around wherever we would like to. I think I'm actually going to just use the hotspots layer then for drawing out volcanoes and stuff like that, rather than specifically just hotspots. So this is going to be our volcanism map mode, basically. So we've got 2 super volcanoes there. I think I want there to be a third underwater one right about here-ish. I want there to be a smaller kind of super volcano on the ocean floor, also from the mantle hotspots. Gonna drink some water real quick here. Okie dokie. Oh, now that I'm hydrated. So, one thing that's going to be interesting about this world is this is a lot less plates than we have in real life. So I think I want their world to be somewhat, I want it to be more tectonically active, but with less plates. That being because of the tidal forces from the hyperterrestrial, which means there are going to be more volcanism and stuff like that. So, along the mid-ocean ridge here, you get, plate boundaries are very conducive to island formation, so I'm going to label a bunch of these triple points as places to put big volcanic islands. For example, Iceland in real life is a great example of that. So let's put one there, one there, one there. We've got another one right here that's pretty promising. Right off here. Right off of there, where the 3 continents are separating. Right off of here. Right off of here. Right here. Right here. Right over here. This one is going to be a hotbed for volcanic activity around this little plate. because this one's a microplate, which means it has a lot more interactions with the surrounding environment. So we've got plenty of volcanism happening down here. And I'm not too worried about making this the most geologically realistic planet or moon. I just want to make it really cool. I just want to have fun with it, so we're not going to be taking it too seriously on the geology, but the geography itself, I would like to have something looking nice. So, we've got all of these. So, because these two are separating, there is going to be a valley in this area, so I'm just going to make a whole bunch of V's here, where these two continents are, these two plates are separating from one another. These two are kind of running into each other, so I'm just going to make some smaller hills here. These two are separating, but there's ocean in the way. These two are coming together, which means that right about here, this whole area is going to be very mountainous. So I'm going to add basically a big old continental crumple zone here, where there's going to be a lot of hills. And there are also going to be a lot of hills along here, where this continent is running into the other one. Okay, so right over here is a strike-slip boundary. This means there is going to be a lot of earthquakes and stuff. I don't really need to do any special labeling there. Because the oceanic plate's being subducted under here, there is most likely going to be a volcanic arc, something like this. So you're gonna have volcanic islands and mountains sticking out of the plate here, basically. Because of that subduction. Let's see, we got any other good places? Yeah, more subduction right here is going to lead to more of that volcanism. So you're gonna have more volcanoes there. We are going to have more volcanoes here because of that subduction. This is spreading, so there's none there. We're going to have more volcanoes here. Another subduction area, so we are going to have kind of an Andes-like mountain range probably right about here. I believe I've got all the subduction boundaries covered. And I've got a lot of the places where the volcanoes would form. That actually looks pretty elegant, I gotta say. If we remove the plate view, we can actually see kind of what I was going for. It actually turned out pretty clear of what's going on. We've got definitely two big mountainous areas, but I do want to try and... So this whole area here is probably going to be hilly. Like, all that's probably going to be hills. And I'm using that rounded symbol to indicate hills just to differentiate it. I think this whole area will be pretty hilly, too, because it's around that super volcanic caldera. That same thing is going to go for up here. And because of where this going over the pole, basically, I think that's, like, over here-ish, there's going to be a lot of hills and stuff. Obviously, we'll make sure that we're doing it all right when we get to the northern pole. That's always rough doing that. Let's see, do we have any other direct collisions? Not really. I mean, we've kind of got some spots where they do collide, so this is going to be a bit of a crumple zone, too. So let's turn that into another mountainous area. That's going to be a valley, because those are pulling apart. Kind of like the East African Rift. Let's see. Where else can we put hilly stuff? I think these volcanic areas will definitely tend to have hillier areas around them. So let's put hills there. Let's put hills here. There's going to be more of those here. More hills, more hills. There's going to be a lot more hills here. I'll probably just connect it to that hilly area. Because we got that spine of mountains that's going to form Andean style. We're going to have more of these hills. We're going to have hills butting right up against the valley, basically. I think that's pretty good for early draft on topography. Actually, there would be more hills and mountains here, so I'm going to do some mountains there. And then some hills. That looks pretty good for our general placement of rough topography. So what we want to do next is we want to make a continents refined layer where we're going to do another pass over on the continents. This time, however, we are going to be going for more precision. So we're going to turn down our layers here just so they're harder to see. And what we want to do now is take all of this geography into account with what we're doing. So, let's start with this little guy here. So we're going to have some mountain building events going on down here. So, I think we want to have some weird little peninsulas going on, where these mountains kind of trail off into a tail, almost. So like that. And then, like, just like that works pretty well. And then the mid-latitudes or not mid-latitudes, the equatorial latitudes tend to be smoother, so I'm trying to go to make that apparent. And then these will trail off into a bunch of mountainous islands. Is this a new project you're working on, or is it related to the Caliverse? This is directly related to the Caliverse. It is, this is the homeworld of the Canastrians that we're working on mapping out. Because I don't like the old map that I made for it, because that old map's procedurally generated, which means that it is going to have issues. And it's harder to control what I want from it when I've got issues like that. And then we're going to have, at these points where there's volcanoes, there's going to be more islands. Like that. There's going to be one here. A couple around it. I'm going to have that one be a little longer to add some variety. Just like that. Like that. And then this one right down here. Gonna look something like that. Looks a little bit odd for now, but we'll go over it again later. This right here, I kind of want to make this one larger because it's a tri-point. So let's make it kind of like almost a little mini Iceland-esque thing. Let's put some islands around it too to give it some more character. This one I know for sure I want to be large, so let's make this kind of chunkier looking. Give it a weird peninsula because it's funny. Because I want it to. That looks kind of cool. So we've got that up there. This down here, I can make this into a smaller, probably pair of islands. And then right over here, I'll probably make like one. Make another one here. But yeah, this is directly related to the Caliverse, so we're gonna have lots of fun stuff like that coming up. I'm going to make some of the parts of the caldera here be above water in the form of islands. Something like that. That looks pretty cool. Let me turn off the other layers. Yeah, because we're going to have a lot of islands on this planet. I think that's a moon. I keep forgetting this is a moon. So this is going to have really cool vibes to it, because we're going to have heavy volcanism, and it is going to be a cold planet, too, so that's going to balance itself out, and basically, give it a very stable climate, but heavy volcanism. So something the Canastrians will definitely have to contend with is that, their moon is very geologically active, but because of that, it also basically gives them life. So let's just do a little bit of this, a little bit of, let's put a little bay there. Something like that could be weird looking and funny. Give it a peninsula, because I like peninsulas. A lot of this world building process is literally just going to be me doing things because I think they look cool. So don't expect much in terms of realism, especially because, like, you know, the main species of the project is a bunch of furries, so, like, you know, realism's already out the window. Let's give that its own little kind of California, like San Francisco Bay kind of looking thing there. Let's give this some more islands. And then I think I actually want to hint that this continues into that island there, so let's do it like that. And have a few kind of frayed-looking islands off the end here, where they're kind of just crunchy. That looks pretty cool. And I'm probably going to go around eliminating a lot of these islands later, but right now, I think they look quite cool. So I'm going to keep these mostly around for now. And then this is going to go like that, kinda, because I want this to have more cragginess to it right around here. Just like that. And also because it's further towards the south and probably had glaciation at some point, I'm going a little bit crazier with some of the formations here, like fjords and stuff. Something like that. Get that all laid out. Get one of these going. I like this kind of formation a lot, where it's all kind of scrungly, because I like scrungly formations. This can just keep on going up this way, smooth out a bit. Let's give it a little bit of a smoother edge here. And then it's going to kind of curve into a bit of a sharper point over here. Keep on going like this. That's looking pretty unique. And then we can actually make this even more unique if we make this pulled out into a big old peninsula by the volcanism. Something like that could be cool. And then it leads into a big old volcanic island here. Just like that. And then I want there to be, probably right about here, I want there to be a big ol' impact crater turned into a basin. So it's going to be something like that. And I'm always a sucker for when the impact crater's still a bit visible, so I'm going to put it like that. But this is going to be a relatively older crater, rather obviously by its size. So I gotta add some more wear and tear to this so it's not as recognizable. Like adding some inlets and stuff like that. Kind of squashing this peninsula in a bit with sediment accumulation. That looks pretty good, I'd say. And then that looks like a funny little fork on that peninsula. I like that a lot. And then let's go keep doing this. Something like that. Awesome. And then along this valley here, I want there to be, kind of like the African Great Lakes, I want there to be some big spots of water in the continent here. Like that. I want there to be some big ol' lakes. So a bit like that. Maybe add a few more, like, right here. Just like that. Let's actually remove this one. Yeah, there we go. That's pretty balanced looking. And obviously we're gonna add more lakes and stuff later on, but those lakes I know for sure I want to be there because that's a valley. Might actually make it even bigger. I might actually go for making this one long, kind of spear-shaped lake. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's a sea right there. That's a whole sea in itself. And let's make it connect to probably a basin right over here. So it's gonna be like this, have its big old basin, have some islands there. Yeah, that's a pretty cool looking inland sea, I gotta say. I like that. Let's take a break from the big continent. Let's do some of our totally not Australia. Because this is meant to literally look a lot like Australia, because it's going to be kind of shape-wise inspired by it. But because of the hills here, it's going to be a lot craggier on this side. And then it's going to do a little bit of this. I don't want the coastline on this one to be too complex because it's meant to be a smoother continent, or subcontinent, whatever you want to call it. And then because it is colliding with this continental plate here, I also want there to be some island building like this, where you get some thinner islands spawning along the actual boundary. Like that. Into that. Because I really like the plate boundary islands. Like, if I turn these off, you can really see that there's a lot of really cool boundaries forming here. And I really, really like the look of that, because I like hypervolcanic worlds. And it also changes the atmospheric composition, too, so Canastrians might be breathing an atmosphere that's a little bit more toxic than the one that we do as humans. So that will make for interesting issues with habitability and stuff like that. I don't think I'm going to ever introduce humans to the setting of the Caliverse, just because I don't think they'd fit very well, and because they wouldn't serve any narrative purpose. So it's probably just going to be Canastrians and some alien species, because I don't want there to be humans. But up here, fjords are so fucking difficult to draw. So I'm just going to do my best with some of these. Fjords are annoying. I'm sure I could do them in more detail later, but today I just want to really get the map started and get something cool rolling. Something like that for those craggy areas. That's pretty cool looking. Let's make kind of a peninsula out like that. Do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Fjords are so fucking hard to draw. I'm doing my best, basically. Let's get it scraggly like that again. More scraggly. turn some of these into inland lakes, too. They're not the best looking, but they're something. Okay, so this part here at the edges, I want to get this before I do anything else. Just so I can get the pixels on the edges actually lined up. Because I don't want there to be issues with wrapping around. So I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna do that on this side as well. That way, it is guaranteed that the coastline will wrap around without any issue. Because that is one of the biggest problems with doing world maps, is that a lot of the time, if you wrap something around the sides, it just doesn't look good because the person making the map hasn't really paid much attention on the projection they're using or how to make it actually look half decent. No shade to map makers out there, but like, y'all gotta learn your projections better. Because that way you can have things, you can avoid things wrapping around awkwardly. You can make sure that all of your coastlines actually stick together on a map when you wrap it on a globe, for example. It's a really difficult thing to handle, so no shade on the people who have had to deal with that, but it's something you gotta figure out eventually if you're wanting to make world maps, because it's a very common issue. Like, if you have any continent that spans over the side of the map, like an Antarctica, or in my case, an Arctica, you've really, really got to know what you're doing there. We're gonna make another inland lake here, something like that. We're gonna make probably right about here in the middle. I want there to be another basin with a pretty decently sized inland sea. So something kind of like that. That works. And then there can be a big ol' island or peninsula sticking up right there. And this can also have some string lakes kind of forming there. So I believe that is most of the major landmasses done. We gotta get this one still. Let's get that. Draw this one out a bit like that. Something like that looks pretty good. Maybe give it a big old lake right there. That's pretty looking. I like that. And then right here at this tri-point, put a scraggly looking group of islands. Something like that almost, just to make it look really weird. We're definitely gonna have to go back and fix stuff with obviously how the map projection handles a lot of it. But for now, it's definitely looking pretty darn good. Something like that. And then right over here, let's put another few islands. Something like that. Okay, now that we've got all of the tectonic-based stuff, we should definitely figure out where we want to put some hotspots down and all that after I get this drawn out. I want to make that kind of a smoother edge with a much craggier interior, kinda. Like that. I like that. Looks pretty good. So we want to figure out now where we want to have some hotspots. So I think I want to have one, like, right over here. So I'm going to have the newest island be right there. There's going to be an older one there. An older one there. An even older one there. And it's going to keep on just moving like that. Because the plate is moving up and that way, so I think it makes sense to have that be there. Let's see, where would another interesting place be to have a hotspot? I'm thinking near the South Pole could be fun. We could have one that's right about here. A big island like that. Like that. And it just kind of keeps on going like that. Because this allows us to have some stuff that almost reaches the South Pole if we really want to. Something just like that. That makes for a pretty interesting looking island chain, in my opinion. Because that's an oceanic plate down there, so... Okay, because we need a few more hotspots. Let's put one... right about... Let's put some of this here, and then because this plate's moving this way, we're gonna have another big island be right there. Another one be here. Another one be there. And then that hotspot will trail off into hills and mountains right in there. So the last remnants of those old islands will actually be underneath this. Oh, stretch. Alright, hold on. I will get up. I will... Oh, blah, blah. Oh, do a good stretch. There we go. I am all stretched out now. Let me grab a sip of water, too. Alrighty. I also want there to be some smaller and harder to see seamounts and stuff like that, so I'm gonna put a few just dotted islands around. Like very remote places that don't have much to show. Like right about there. There could definitely go for some along this boundary here, because this is a subduction boundary, so there's going to be volcanoes. So something like that. Put one there. There. Let's actually turn off the volcanism and the old continents layer just so I can see. Because then I could put stuff right there in the ocean. This is kind of going to be our Pacific out here. There's going to be a lot of scattered islands around. That's going to be fun right there. Let me just make sure that I've got relatively level... right about here, yeah. Because then I can just draw a few more in that chain. / group, whatever you want to call it. A bunch of those right over there. A few islands in the Southern Ocean. That obviously have to be stretched because of polar distortion on the map. Like that, that's good. Few of those around, a few of those. Put few in the big sea there. Put one, let's put them over here, kinda. That looks pretty cool. Ooh, yeah, I'm liking the look of that. I really like how volcanic this world is. That's, I think, my favorite thing about this. I think these are really, really solid continent shapes. I definitely think I should add some more lakes and stuff like that. So let's do that next. So I think I want especially more lakes over here. Let's turn the plate slayer back on, and the let's actually just turn the volcanism so we can see the topography. Let's do some more topography building here with these lakes. This will kind of be like our Great Lakes region, where it's going to be a far more continental inland lake system. That's a whole bunch of seas, basically. That's more than just lakes, but it works really well. Can have some lakes in not Australia here, like that, or like that. This continent here definitely deserves a few, so let's put some in there. Like that. Let's make some longer ones, and let's actually make some of these be parallel to that. And then in here, I want to make some lakes that parallel the Finger Lakes up in New York. So they're going to be just literally stripy kind of lakes that are banded like this. Just like that. That looks really cool. Could also have a few more lakes like that around. We want there to be some lakes up here, too. Not too many, though, because it is cold up there. This will probably be pretty desertic in there, so I'm going to leave that alone. But around here, could put a few more. Let's turn off that. Let's see. So this sea right down here looks pretty lonely. So let's add a few more parts to it, like that. So it stretches down and over there. Because usually big bodies of water like this are accompanied by smaller ones. So you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff like this happening. That looks pretty cool, I'd say. I might actually cut this in half. And just make it so that's a big lake on its own, too. Cut it down even further. That looks cool. Actually, I might make this into a full-on failed continental rift right here, because it is spreading into a new ocean. So I'm going to make it kind of just look like that. And I'm also going to make it come down from the top, too. And follow the rift system some more. Because it is spreading the continent apart, which means there's going to be more bodies of water along here. So that makes it a lot more conducive to being literally torn wide open like that. I think that looks fucking sick, honestly. Let's take another look at... Let me find an Earth map again. Just so we can put it up on screen again, just so we could take a look at some of the seas and stuff like that and the proportional sizes. I think I've definitely got larger seas than Earth does on here, but that is okay because it makes it unique. So let's put it like that. That's pretty accurate in proportion. So, comparing the sizes here, yeah, we've definitely got more inland seas than our world does, but I definitely think that gives it more charm because it gives it that kind of glaciated look that you see in a lot of stuff like this, where it's this kind of formation, and I think I did really well in making the islands look really fucked up in some areas, although I do think they could bear to be more fucked up. So I'm going to hide that layer, and I am going to, over here, I think, let's check the plates boundaries. Yeah, over here, let's make kind of a Philippines analog, almost, where it's a bunch of really small, scraggly islands kind of held together by a big one. And then a bigger island could be, like, right over here. This could be like our Papua New Guinea or Indonesia, almost. something like that. Because then you've got a whole bunch of really scattered islands in this area. So let's add some more of those around. This is I really like this area. This actually looks really fucking cool. Add a whole bunch of islands around here. That looks fucking awesome. Just like that. So we've got a whole area up there that's kind of like the Indonesia area. I think that looks personally fucking awesome. However, I'm going to make one change here. I'm going to make it so that this is actually a peninsula. Because that gives the continent a really weird shape, and I like it. So, that, I would say, looks pretty damn good in terms of, like, an actual, world map. I do think the only thing I could do to make it look better is give this continent a few lakes of its own, because it is further south. So realistically, it's going to have a bit more of a kind of like Finland-esque climate, I think. We'll do climate modeling in a bit here, but it is going to have lakes, I know that much. And this one deserves some smaller lakes, too. Like that. Put a lake there. Just like that. This area I'm gonna leave mostly for now alone. Just put a few speckles here and there for the lakes. Put a few bigger lakes here and there. But nothing huge. Just like that. I think that looks pretty solid. So let us save that. Okay. Our next step here is going to do some climate modeling. So let's pull up our how to model a climate. Or how to manually map climates. Let's see here. I know there's a good guide around here somewhere. God, I wish I had this bookmarked. It'll be just a second, y'all, while I find this. I think it might be Worldbuilding pasta is, I think, the one that I'm looking for. So, let's go Worldbuilding pasta. I think it's an apple pie from scratch is the system that we're looking for. Tools and resources. I know they've got something good on here. I think it might be sitemap. Here it is. Size and surfaces. Climate. I think climate is going to be good that we have to do here. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a lot of reading here. We've already got a lot of this sorted out. So, I think the first thing we want to map out is our wind zones. Because our day is relatively close to Earth, we are going to have 3 convection cells in each hemisphere. We're going to have the polar, the westerlies, and the polar easterlies, the westerlies, and the trade winds are the 3 that we're going to have in the north. And then they're going to have the equivalent in the south. So, this is going to be... let's see how we're going to do this. Selecting it like that. Select. Can I transform? Edit selection. Can I get it down to exactly halfway? Is that a thing I can do? There's gotta be. There's gotta be some way I can, like, manually set how big I'm selecting. Select all. Scale? Oh, scale selection. Okay, yeah. So our height's going to be 250. Our width is still going to be 1000. Use nearest neighbor. Select. Edit selection. I think that's going to be good. Hit apply. Why is that red? Oh, it's just our selection mask. So yeah, we can... Oh. Yeah, I guess that works. Okay. This is going to be our northern region. So let me get our fill bucket out here. Our northern region. And then the rest will be our southern region. Just like that is going to be dividing us into the northern and southern hemisphere. It also gives us a good look of what areas are going to be equatorial. So we're going to have a pretty decent amount of equatorial land here, which is actually really good. Okay. The next thing we need to sort out is actually drawing out those wind cells. I believe on an equirectangular map, we should be able to draw out those wind bands pretty easily. Let me scroll through a little bit here, see if we can. Earth wind patterns map. Equirectangular. Come on, I'm trying to find something that'll help me out here. None of these are really helping. Okay. Is that accurate? I think it is. Yeah, because you literally just divide it up into 60 degrees north, 30 degrees north, so I just gotta divide this in 3, basically. So let's select this, select, edit selection, nope, not edit selection, undo. Let us do that again. Select that, select scale. Our height is going to be 250 divided by 3. So that's 83 pixels. So this right here is going to be one of our bands. We're going to just make that our orange band. And then the one below it is going to be our yellow band, because it's closest to the equator. And it just makes things easier. We're making this just a giant fucking pride flag at this point. It's kind of funny. Let's actually delete that, because I know a lot easier of a way for us to do this. Let's do that. Layer, transform, rotate 180 degrees. Let's move this on downwards. Let me just make sure we got that in place. We do. And then what we do is we go for our blue near the pole as lighter blue, and then a kind of cyanish color. There we go. And let's just turn these back to 100% opacity, merge with the layer below. So, we want to start drawing out the winds here. So let me go back up to that. So the polar cells are going to be going like... No, I'm going to draw the arrows on another layer. Let's call these wind arrows. I don't care that I misspelled that. These are going to be going this way. That's which way those are going. These are going to be going like this. Just like that. And then these ones are going to be coming down like that. Perfect. And then we can just duplicate that layer, flip layer vertically, and then we've got our arrows. Okay, now that we have our arrows, what we can do is we gotta check this out here. We're not too worried about the forcings, so I'm gonna go back. Biomes and climate zones is the thing we are most worried about. So, prevailing winds is what we absolutely want to be worried about first. Game map? Yes, indeed. We got a game map. So, we've got our wind directions mapped out. So, we've got the converging winds and the diverging winds. Let's mark out... Okay, so the first step is to mark out the ice caps. So let's turn our wind off. Let's get our ice caps layer going here. And just set that to a very visible color. Turn on our volcanism layer again so we can see our actual, like, fucking, topography. So this is all going to be under ice, I think. All of that is going to be under ice. I know that much for sure. I think down to about there is going to be under ice. The ice is going to continue down along this mountain range. It's going to be back again once you get further inland. Just like that. It's going to extend a little bit down into these hills. And then the rest of this is entirely going to be covered. That's going to be more ice. More ice here. More ice here. Probably more ice there. Actually, we're just drawing big ice caps, so it's not going to include those islands. So, let's try that again with a bit more precision this time. Start off with this, just like that, because we cannot include the islands under that, at least not yet. Because we gotta make sure we get the actual main landmasses ice caps done first. Something like that, because that's a big island there. Let me just check to see, because it does show that islands will have them, but not to the extent of a lot of the big landmasses. So unless the islands are really high altitude, we don't have to worry too much about this on the islands. So let's do it like this, covering past here, and then it basically stops there, follows the mountain range like that. From there, I think it basically is just going to thin out and then thicken back up when you get further towards the poles. Do something like this. Follow the mountains again. And basically come back on down here. Just like that. That's about what our northern ice cover is, I think, going to look like. Let me cross-reference with the example map they gave. Because I'm trying to make it apparent that this is a colder world than Earth. So I think I actually got to make some of these areas a bit more icy. Let me actually just select this whole area and erase that, because the further into the continent you go... Oh, shit. Wrong button. There we go. Okay. Because this planet is colder, so it's going to be a lot further down that gets that ice. Like that. And then basically right along the shores of this lake, I think. That's a pretty good place to put it, because we're only doing land ice cover right now. We're not too worried about the sea ice. So it's going to look something like that. And then we're going to want to erase a little bit of that. That looks pretty good. We are going to have ice cover on some parts of these islands, like this ridge right here is definitely going to have it, like right there, there, a bit on here. This is going to be kind of like our Iceland, this island over here, so it's going to have a big old glacier in it. These mountains are probably pretty high, so they're going to have some ice cap coverage, despite them being almost mid-latitudes. That's pretty good looking. Let's cover these up a bit too. Not entirely, but something just like that. This island, pretty much entirely cover it. Down here, we do want to have at least a little bit of coverage of the ice caps. Probably about, like, this, probably, because these hills are not too high. But they're high enough to make all of this very cold. So it's going to be something like that. And then around here, maybe just a little bit like that, because this is lower elevation stuff right here. So it's going to look something like that. That's going to be covered. These islands are going to be covered. So is that. So is that. So are these. This right here is definitely going to be a very cold little continent. Something like probably up to about there, because it's very hilly. And then you go down here. That's all ice. That's all going to be covered in ice as well. So is this. That's all icy. So is this, so is this, so is this. This is going to be a very high peaked island, so most of that's going to be ice, despite how far north it is. This one's going to have significant ice cap coverage, but not the entire thing. However, these islands, with how far south they are, those are going to be entirely icy. I think I want to make this entirely ice as well. Get a little bit of ice coverage over here, because these are mountains, so I'm going to go, like, probably a bit just like that. That's going to be pretty good for our ice coverage in the south, because it's not quite as mountainous as the north. I might actually extend these a little further. So something more like that. Awesome. And then we gotta handle some of the stuff like this big island right there, these smaller ones. That is, I think, pretty good for our ice coverage. Looks about even on both poles, so I'm not worried about that too much. Next up is going to be the deserts. So mountains, cause rain shadows a lot of the time. So let me just read some more of this here. The main belt of deserts is between 15 degrees and 30 degrees latitude. So if I go back in here and I turn those wind zones back on, those deserts, or I'm going to draw them in red, the deserts will be between 15 and 30 degrees, so they're going to be kind of like this band here, basically. So I'm going to see, once I turn off the wind zone, or actually, I'll make the wind zones just less visible. We've got the volcanism layer on, so we can still see our stuff. But our deserts are going to be more inland stuff. So we want to first see, with our wind arrows, if we've got these pointing towards any mountains. Because if they point towards mountains, or even tall hills, you're going to get rain shadows. So something like this being a desert... Actually, I don't know about the equatorial deserts. It looks like equatorial deserts are still a thing, so I'm going to have there be a small bit of desert right about there. And there's going to be a coastal, like, Chilean-style desert all along here, basically. Because this is all going to be mountainous, so all of this coastline, basically, is going to be a desert. So there's a desert there. There's going to be maybe a little bit of a desert around here-ish. Probably more like that inland. Let's take a look here. These hills might block up a little bit and cause a desert to form. It's not going to be a hot desert, but it'll be a desert. Definitely going to be a desert here. Something like that in shape. This whole inland area is basically going to be one giant desert. It's going to look something like, I think, kind of like this, almost. But that looks a little too round, so let me just take a look at this. So, let me take a look at the website that's telling me more about this here. So yeah, the deserts at 15 to 30 degrees latitude tend to form mostly from topography, it looks like. But you've also got stuff like the Sahara that just forms from its natural area. Hi Garden. Hey buddy, how you doing today? I am currently sitting here trying to figure out rain shadows. So I think something like this would actually probably make the most sense. Just like that. It's a pretty decent shape for that, I think. And then it's going to actually have another desert be right next to it here. This coastal desert is going to come from these mountains being right there. Oh dear God, yeah. Indeed. Oh dear God. I'm trying to sort out climate on this planet here. I need to catch up on my ecology knowledge, woof. So what I'm doing right now, this is just me mapping out basic stuff like deserts and ice caps for my world before anything. I will be right back, y'all. I need to do something. I will put us on the be right back screen. I will return momentarily. Okie dokie, I return, and of course Krita decides I have to tap back for it to actually stream. There we go. Okay, so we are working on rain shadows. So one of the big things that causes rain shadows is mountains. We've got our winds there, we've got our mountains layer here. But because this wind's blowing this way, so there's going to be a desert kind of like here-ish is going to be our rough position of that desert. We're also still going to draw the deserts in here because these deserts are going to be cold deserts. They're going to be like not hot deserts, but they're going to be cold enough that they're probably going to be a very interesting climate. So something like that probably will do. And let me just turn the wind zones back on so we stay inside those. Yeah, this is like... There's not a whole lot of deserts on this world, which is actually a pretty good thing. Because that means we're going to have pretty habitable conditions all over the world. Which is ideal. We don't really need to worry about drawing deserts under the ice caps, because they're under the ice caps, so, like, no need to worry about that too much. But there are some exposed zones where it does matter, and I think we've got all of those. So we only really have a few... Well, yeah, I know deserts are habitable, but, for the Canastrians, because they are adapted for cold climates and wet weather. So it is not exactly ideal for them. Okay. So first things first, with our actual biomes, is going to be where our forest, like thickest forest will be. So let's go, this means I'm more powerful than them? Sure. Whatever you'd like to think. Let's go rainforest, and let's just go with a vibrant color so I can see what we're doing. And our rainforests are going to be near the equator. I also need to turn this back on so I know where they stop. So they're going to be something like... kind of like this, almost, because all that rain is going to get eaten up by those hills. So we're going to have rainforests all along here. These islands are going to be rainy. That one's also probably going to be pretty rainy. It's picking up... There's probably going to be water picked up off of the water from here, so that's probably going to be rainforest over here. Let me take a look at the guide again. Yeah, I think that looks about right. So there'll probably be some rainforest along here, because this is the direction the wind is going. Not a whole lot, though, because this world is a very cool world. So there's not going to be a whole lot of hot rainforest here. Got that. This is definitely going to be a rainforest. So is that. Or at the very least, it's going to have conditions conducive to it. This right here I actually think I need to add more desert in here. Probably erase this one, because that one doesn't fit too well. But here, we can have some hyper-saline lakes, like those ones, and then just have ourselves a desert kind of running like this, almost. So not too big, but big enough to be noticeable and have an effect on the local environment. Something just like that. That looks like a pretty good desert to me. Let's get our rainforest color back again. And then have our rainforest right here be just like that. That's a pretty good looking rainforest. There's not really gonna be a whole lot of tropical rainforest on this world. So that's gonna be our... Actually, we're going to turn this into our forests layer, so just all forests. That's our tropical rainforests. We're gonna go with this much darker color for our 45 to 60 degree latitude forests that are going to be much thicker and more continental. Like these ones here are going to be pretty much all forested. Like that. Those are going to be nice and good. These ones here are probably going to be forested all nice. There's probably going to be a good bit of forest on this island here. Just like that. That's probably going to be the most forested area of that island. Let's make some of these, because there's probably going to be some good wind coming through here, so these islands are going to be a little more forested. And we also have to keep in mind that because this world is colder, I can actually extend these forests a little further south than they otherwise would go. So I'm probably gonna make some of these more southern islands also be not rainforest, just forests in general. Because of how cold of a world this is. So it's gonna be something like that for those islands there. Something like... That island's probably gonna have something like that for its forests. That's all gonna be forested. So is this. Got lots of forested islands here. I really like this. Something like that. Let's go with that too. I think that looks good. Just like that. And then these areas around the coast will definitely be forested. Pretty thoroughly forested. Like that. That works pretty well. This is gonna be right next to the ice sheet, so I'm gonna add a little bit of forest in here. Let me take a look at the map again. That's provided as an example. So we're probably gonna have some more... Nah, this is probably gonna be not forested. I think that's about all the forest for the northern hemisphere. So let's handle the southern ones. Like that, that, and that. These ones. These ones. I think I'm gonna have all of these probably be forested. That makes sense, I think. Have that be forest. There's hills here, so let's have the forest kind of look something like this, almost. That's a pretty good forest, I would say. These islands will be forested. These ones are also going to be forested. Just like that. This is, I think, probably going to be one of the most heavily continental forested continents. Just because of the fact that it is so, like, conducive to it on this side of the continent, because that valley means that there's not really any hills or anything around. So there's going to be a nice big continental forest there. I think I might actually add a small desert on this side of the coast. Let's go and do that real quick. Turn that wind layer back on, and let's add a small desert on this side of the coast that stretches in a bit, just like that. That's cool looking, I like that. Select the forested color again. I think we might have a little bit of forest, like right about here, but not too much, because that desert means a lot of that moisture is gone. That's gonna be forested. I think that does it for our forests. So let's turn the rest of those layers off, just so we can see what we got so far. We got a pretty good distribution of biomes so far. Like, the lighter green is more tropical forests, specifically rainforests. The darker green is going to be more continental. I think it works quite well. So let me go back up here. I'm not going to be simulating the temperature. I would really rather not deal with that. Because I am not about to be simulating it. I just like to see what we've got for fun rather than anything. Ocean currents is our next step. Alrighty, so first things first, our ocean currents I will make a layer for. Ocean currents. Our first one is going to be an equatorial current that basically just runs like this until it hits the continent. Where's my cursor? There it is. This one's also gonna run pretty much straight forward. When is your Comcast sponsor? What? What are you referring to? I'm so confused right now. It's pretty obvious. What? What do you mean it's pretty I don't get the joke. What are you going for here? I don't understand. It's going to split the current like this. Yeah, Toho, you got me lost here. I don't know what the fuck you're on about. Genuinely no clue what you're saying. This coyote just be saying fucking whatever. The Comcast... What are you saying? The Comcast sponsor, huh? Like, you can't just fucking... I'm not sponsored by anybody. And I probably won't be anytime soon. Nor do I really want to be. But yeah, Toho, whatever bit you were trying to go for here has fallen flat. I'm gonna tell you flat out. Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be thinking, like, right now. I'm just not gonna interact with the bit anymore. If I don't interact with it, it'll go away. Dumbest bit ever. Alright, something like that. No one ever answered my- I did! I did answer your question. There's no fucking Comcast sponsor. What are you on about? You were just genuinely trying to rage bait me, and unfortunately it's working. I'm gonna kill you. You never said when? It's not, okay. Yeah, I'm just not interacting with your bit anymore. Because it's not fucking happening. I am no longer interacting with the bit. Alrighty. So we've got the basic ocean currents established here. There's not really a good flow back across from there, so it is going to be sitting right where it is. We are going to be having these currents go poleward when they hit the continent, meaning these ones here are actually... Ooh, this is going to be interesting. How am I going to do this? So this is basically going to go... This is either going to go like that, or like this. I think it is more likely going to go like this because of the continental shelf. So I'm just going to make it go... Carry that warm water like that. This is going to be a warm water current. Something like that. We've got that set. Actually, that's not gonna be a warm water current. I don't know what I was doing there. This, however, these are gonna flow kind of along like this. I just knocked my keyboard over on my desk. That's wonderful. Something like that. And then something like that. Because of the continental shelf. So those are going to be deflected. That looks pretty good. But straits actually could have some impact here, but those are pretty shallow straits, so I think I'm going to leave them where they are. But this right here is going to definitely provide us with some more interesting currents here, because this is deep enough that I think it's going to be going like that. And probably, let me select the color there. I'm probably going back around, like... No, because the wind doesn't really allow that. I don't know what to do there. I'll wait to do that. Something like that. I've got those gyres set up. So the currents that bring warm equatorial waters poleward separate at about 45 degrees latitude, it looks like. So I'm going to undo the ones that I drew there. So they separated about 45 degrees latitude, which is about up there. So I'm going to redraw those now. So this is going to go kind of up. And then basically just like that. There's not going to be a warm current up here because it literally just doesn't squeeze back through there. So that's a gyre closed in on itself. So this is going to go up alongside the coastline and then separate and go that way, basically. This is going to go down kind of like that and do something like that. I believe that's all the warm currents I had to handle here. Actually, there's probably going to be one more that does a little something like this and probably runs up along these islands and comes along like this. I think that makes sense with the direction everything's heading in here. Because there is going to be a bit of a shelf here from these islands. So something like that would make sense. Everything else, though, I think it works. So I'm going to leave that like it is. We got those. The poleward currents continue along the coasts. One branch will flow along the coast equatorially and merge back with the equatorial current. So it does that. And then it flows a little further. Something like that, I think. I think something like that. Ocean currents are difficult. Something like that. Oop. That, basically. Okay, something like that I think works. And I think this one is also going to go across the ocean like that. And it's going to encounter the continental shelf right about there. Which means that once it stops there, there's going to be warm currents going northwards. So I'm actually going to erase a little bit of that. Because this is going to stop right about there. Warm current going like this. Warm current going like this. Something like that. This is going to go kind of like that. Kinda. I think that works for that part. I think those are the only few poleward currents we actually have to worry about. The rest of them are going to be cold currents, and those cold currents are going to lead back into the actual gyre like that. Something like that on those. This is going to be like that, just running back into this. I'm sure I fucked something up along the way here, but, like, I'm doing my best. Actually, I do wonder, would this go through here? Because that is a trench. Ooh, we could do something interesting. We could do something really weird here. I want to do it. So what I'm going to do here is, this is going to go like that. And I'm going to split it into one that just goes right back in without much of a temperature change. And I'm going to also actually, no. I don't think I can geologically do that. So I'm going to leave it just like that. So I think I'm actually going to have to erase that arrow. Because this is going to come like that. And then that doesn't really change anything is the issue. So I'm just gonna, I guess, just leave it. That's kind of disappointing. Oh well. If no masses block the poleward current, it will continue to around 80 degrees latitude where it will curve back west until hitting a coast. And it will be a cold current, I think. No, it'll just be a current. So it'll be something like this. Or it'll be like that. And then it'll come around here, just like that. This one will go around kind of like that. To about here, probably. This one will also join in with that, something like that. So we've got a pretty much circumpolar current going on. And since it runs into a continental shelf here, it turns into a circumpolar current that pretty much just runs... Oh my god. Can't draw a straight line for the life of me. Runs something like that, and just basically turns in on itself. Just like that. So that makes sense. And then if a warm air comes back in on itself, then like up there, just like up there then, that one will be a cold current. And that will just flow back in on itself, so I gotta remove the end of that and just do that. So that's a cold current. Oh my goodness. And then... what am I gonna do about this? Because there's no currents up here, so I think I gotta do what I did down here and just have there be some, currents that kind of just split off from it at some point when they hit a feature. So it's going to be something like this, and then I think... because this is flowing this way is the issue. So I will just have it so... oh, wrong color. No, I'll just have it so another one of these splits off right about here, goes up a little bit, runs along just like that, runs into the continental shelf, and then it splits into coming back in on itself. I think it comes back in on itself. Let me check. Okay, no, it doesn't. It just basically does that, and then it will have a warm current that runs northwards until about here, I want to say. Something like that. And then that gets carried along and just kind of weaves its way through the islands here. And then gets over there. Once it's there, however, it splits, so another warmer current goes north. And then a cold current goes south. So I gotta grab that. Cold current goes like that. And another cold current is gonna run right along the northern edge here. And it's gonna run right along to there. Actually, no, that's gonna be a black arrow. Because it's going to be just normal. But that's gonna do that then. So I gotta refill that as black. And then I think that just about does it for the ocean currents. This is a fucking mess, dude. Now that we've got that, dear God, so the biggest impacts are going to be where the warm currents run straight into, the continents. So I'm going to make a temperature changes layer, where we're going to start with our warm currents, and we're going to start with marking out orange, where those warm currents impact the coastlines. So that's going to be right along here is going to be a warmer area. Right along here, I think, is going to be warmer. Yeah, because basically anywhere next to the actual thing. So right along there is going to be a hotter area. Right along here, this whole area is going to have a nice warm current running through it. This is going to have a warm current. Let's see here. This all is going to have a nice warm current. Right along there. That's going to be a warm current. That's going to be a warm current. So is this. All of these are... No, these are going to have that warm current. So is this area. This area is also going to have a warmer current coming by it. Because we got to take this all into account when we actually do the climates more. That's going to be warmer. That looks pretty good for that. And then our colder ones we'll mark out with this color. So, like, right along here is going to be colder and drier. Right along here is going to be colder and drier. So are these islands. This whole area is definitely going to be colder and drier. Let's see. All of this is going to be colder and drier. This all is going to be pretty cold and dry, too. Just like that. So is this island, so are these. Let's see. Along here as well, but this doesn't matter as much because there's only a small area of land actually there. So I think that just about handles all the currents. So those adjusted temperatures mean that we are going to be having some more, I'm not going to be doing very precise climates here, rather obviously, but I'm still going to be doing my best. Let me adjust my seating for a second. Oh my god. Okay, so the next step I think we should actually take is to next thing we want to do is probably actually make a way to distinguish the ocean from the land. So I'm going to backfill the background here. I'm going to make an ocean layer. The ocean is just going to be that nice color. We can delete the continent sketch layer. Everything else is still visible on top. We got the ocean layer. The continents refined is going to have to be filled in so we can actually figure out what is land and what isn't. So let's go for a... Let's just go for that color. That looks good. And let's just start filling in everything that is land, because this gives us a good distinction of what is and is not coastline. So we're gonna have point-and-click simulator for a little bit here. I really, really like how the landforms on this turned out. It's got some very pretty-looking peninsulas and stuff. So he's got to make sure everything can get filled in all right here, because this is key to drawing our biomes and stuff. That looks good. That looks good. Gotta handle that, because we gotta make sure we don't miss pixels, because that would be annoying as fuck. Handle that. Good. Get our little volcanic islands here. A little more. Do do that, do that, do that. Let's go here, here, here. I'm glad we haven't had any issues with filling yet. Everything has been actually solid coastlines, so I don't have to worry about, like, finding a hole in the side of an island or something. I actually did a pretty good job of drawing congruent shapes on this one. Let's go for that. I think that's what I was going for up there. Keep on. No! Let's do that. Do that. Handle this island before I forget to. Do that. Put that there. Awesome. Let's see how totally not Australia's looking here. I think it's actually looking pretty damn good. Let's see, how long have I been live? 2 hours already, goddamn. So I'll probably give it a few more minutes here. Because right now is the tedious part. Where I gotta go around and make sure everything gets filled in. And also, y'all, please yell at me if I, like, miss something very obvious when I'm doing this. You guys can be my spot checkers. I'm just making sure that I don't miss things, because, like, it'll be hell to find these if I do. That looks good. That's supposed to be like that. Not seeing any issues. Which is why I went with a lower resolution map first, because we wanted to get the basic details done before anything. I'm not seeing any missing parts here. Oh my goodness. Once again, I'm going to be right back, y'all. I will return momentarily. Okay, I return. Come on, Krita, come back. Okay, we're gonna do another once over here just to make sure that I haven't missed anything. Because there's a solid chance I might have. So we're gonna start on the northern coastline here. Do a little scroll through. Very carefully look at everything. There's already a few pixels I saw that I just had to take care of. These lakes here, everything looks good. Besides that, there we go. I think I made a really good decision making this all one continent, because this looks really cool. Like, the coastlines on this turned out really unique. Especially with how volcanic everything here is. I think I actually gotta erase that. There we go, that looks more correct. I think we've just about got it. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start by drawing out the elevation more cleanly. Elevation. So this color is going to be our basic, close to the ground kind of color, low. Let me take a look at the guide and see how many height classes that the simulator uses, because I want to try and use the simulator later. It uses... how many classes of elevation? Okay, it uses fairly flat, which is 0 to 1,000 meters, low mountains, 1,000 to 2,000 meters, medium mountains, and high mountains. So, we are going to do our low mountains areas next, which is going to be most of our hills. So we're going to put this above our volcanism layer, and we are going to start drawing... We don't have to be as careful with this, but we're just going to start by drawing out our hill areas here. The hills are actually probably going to be a bit bigger, kind of like that. Just like that. That looks pretty good. Put it just like that. Let's move that below that layer, and then when we finish up drawing all of these actual layers, that's when I'll go through and fix it to make sure we get, everything, like, staying within the bounds of the land, basically. If you get what I mean. Okay, just like that. We don't have to be too clean with this. Just needs to give us a general idea of the shape of everything in the area. Something like that. Just looks like a giant dick, but that's kind of funny. Just like that. God, that looks horrendous. I actually need to do some editing here. Put it like that. That's a lot better. And then we can kind of go through here and do some editing of cutting part of those hills out. And I think we can also safely cut these apart because these are different formations. So there's going to be a bit of valley between them. Something kind of like that. That makes sense. And then we are going to want to put our hills, once again, like this. Something like that. And I think just for easiness, I'm actually going to just make the hills stretch over the whole North Pole. So something like that, basically. Something like that for those hills. Because I don't want to have to deal with wraparound again. It's gonna go like this. Gonna go come down. All the way across through this area. These lakes are gonna be higher elevation, so I'm gonna do this. Take our eraser brush here. Because then with this, we can do stuff like that. And then do that. Brush, erase. A little more on the hills here. Keep on going out that way a little bit longer. Should be good for those. This continent's definitely going to be the hilliest. Then this down here. Gonna have these hills be around. Just like that. These are also going to be pretty hilly. The islands don't matter as much because they're hardly going to show up at the resolution we need to do the simulation at. But they're still good to have on there. Let's see, get that on there. Get that, get that. Handle all this down here. Beautiful. This right over here we'll be a little more careful with that. Something like that, almost. And then right up here, we're gonna have some more hills along the edge. And add a few other areas with hills for good measure. Just like that. Got hills there. Hills here. Hills here. Here, here, here. Once again, we're going to be handling all this, once we get all the elevation drawn out, we're actually going to use the land mask to make sure everything stays on the land. Let's get this all nice and hilly, because it realistically would be. Something like that. Something like that. And I think that does it for all the actual hills. So our next up layer is going to be darker, and that is going to be medium mountains, which is 2,000 to 4,000 meters. So that's going to be stuff like up here we're going to have a band of those. And that's going to be for that super volcano. And we're also going to have that be right along here as well. Just like that. That looks pretty nice. Just like that. Same thing is going to happen right on down here. Gonna have a bunch of... These are, like, our proper mountains layer, basically. This is going to just be everything that's actually pretty high up. We're just kind of scribbling it on here. It doesn't have to be too pretty. It's just gotta work. Just like what I'm doing right now, it just gotta scribble all that shit on. And keep on doing that for some of these higher areas. More mountains over here that we gotta handle, so let's stick them like this. Just like that. I think that looks pretty cool. This is basically, like, this is kind of like almost a Tibet kind of area over here, it looks like. This is really cool. This is just going to be one giant fucking mountain range like the Rockies. So I'm going to be kind of giving it some more scraggly look to it like this. Because it deserves to look swag. So it's going to be like that. Going to be like kind of a little bit like this. We're going to have some more of these hills extending in there. And it's basically just going to be one big ol' choppy range like this. And then these ones are going to be shorter mountains. And we're going to have a few over here, but not many. Right in here in this caldera, we're going to have the kind of outline of it to be the tallest of the mountains. Because I think that would be pretty swag. Not that way. Wrong way. Just like that. Because then it's got that indication that this used to be something much larger. Let's draw some mountains down here. Nothing too huge. I believe that does it for all the mountains. No, we still need to do this range. And this range pretty much just runs straight across like that. No need to worry too much about making that look too elegant. Something like that. And then our last layer of elevation is going to be higher than that. It's going to be the greater than 4,000 meters. So we're going to have just a few spots of that. Not many at all. Like, we'll have a few areas up here that'll be that high up. We'll have, like, 2 spots or 3 spots down there. Some that are right up here. This area is going to have a lot of really tall mountains. Something like that. That's pretty good for those really tall mountains. Alright. And then this right over here. Gonna have some of this. Let me actually take a look at the example just to see how well I'm doing with this. Yeah, the placement that I'm doing is pretty darn good. Because the really, really tall mountains have a lot of these, but there aren't many in some of those, so it's like, I just gotta be careful with how much I put down. Something like that is good. This here, this is going to have a lot of really high mountains. So it's gonna be kind of a lot of this going on. A lot of this happening, where it's kind of bent out of shape. With the continent being crumpled from one side by that collision. Just like that. And a little bit of high on that side. And on this side, over here, these mountains will also be pretty high up. Something like this. That looks pretty darn good for a rough elevation map, I gotta say. So what we're going to do now is go down to the continent's refined layer. We're going to select everything on this layer, not on every layer. Everything on this layer that is like that in the ocean. And we are going to go up to our elevation delete all of that. And then on our elevation map here, we are also going to take our lightest color and fill in everything across the map that is black. And there we go. There's our elevation map. So we've got a pretty solid elevation map of the world here. Doesn't have to be anything too pretty, because I just gotta do some simulation with it later. Let's see, what else is I gonna refine? I think this was actually really about it. So I think with that then, this is a pretty good finished result for the map of the world. I'm gonna be doing some more simulation and stuff on my own time. But I'm going to be ending us off here, so make sure you stick around for just a second, because I'm going to try and find someone for us to raid. Let's take a look if there's anyone I'm following that's live. Let's see. Raffles playing Elden Ring. Fucking RT Game is live. Let's go raid Raffle. So if you guys want to stick around, we're gonna go raid Raffle. Okay, I only have 2 viewers, so I'm actually not gonna do raiding today. So with that then, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will likely be live again tomorrow, so I will see you guys around. Bye-bye.